So, just one of the battles very heated over the fate of the ANC's troubled Eastern Cape elective conference, otherwise known as the Festival of Chairs, because so many chairs were thrown. That was the focus today. Joining us in studio is Political Analyst Levy Ndou. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Ndou. Let's start with the big rumour and claim and then denied reports about Gwede Mantashe, who was included on Cyril Ramaphosa's slate. He then said that was wrong for him to be included in the first place. What do you make of this, most recent claims?
Well, I think it's important to note that the ANC is now characterized by factions. And it's quite interesting that when Cyril Ramaphosa announced his team, there was a huge outcry. Indeed, that outcry is informed by the fact that the ANC is battling and unfortunately is not being able to deal with the factions that are in existence. But obviously, one would say, even though pronouncement or no pronouncement, people are aware that there is a team that is actually that has been assembled for NDZ. Now Cyril also had to announce his own team. But you know, when we always look at rumors, they become very, very dangerous. Similarly, the rumor that that was there this morning about the possible removal of the SG from his position. And fortunately, the ANC has been able to clarify that. But then, this then becomes a clear indication that indeed there are problems within the ANC. The factions that are there, not only at regional, at provincial, regional and branches, the factions are there even in the NEC. And that is why you'll find these kind of things happening within the ANC. What the current NEC has failed to do was to address factionalism and ensure that something is done in order to ensure that the ANC moves beyond factionalism.
Gwede Mantashe, you're right, used to be the voice of the ANC. He, you know, when he spoke, he was seen as the official voice. But now he's seen as one of the factions, despite his protestations. Do you agree with me?
Yes, indeed. When the candidates are busy campaigning, which is firstly unusual in the ANC, for people to avail themselves and say we are available for this kind of a position, slates are actually emerging to say, in this team, we have got these individuals that are supposed to work with this particular team. But in principle, that is what the ANC is actually against that. But then, the ANC NEC has actually failed itself, because when the ANC Women's League made a pronouncement on leadership 18 months ago, the National Executive Committee of the ANC kept quiet. And that is why we are in this kind of a crisis even today.
So they didn't nip it in the bud, basically?
Discipline is emphasized in the ANC, and you'll expect the leadership of the ANC to discipline those that are against the rules of the party. Okay,
so now it's becoming a free-for-all, filtering down to the provinces. Let's go to the Eastern Cape. Can you try and explain in simple terms what on earth is going on?
There are members of the ANC who are disgruntled, who are not happy with certain processes that happened at a conference.
In 2015?
In 2015.
So a very old historical issue.
A very old historical issue. And whilst we're discussing the Eastern Cape, we must also recall what happened in KwaZulu-Natal. When the members of the ANC would say, we are not happy with certain processes that happened at a particular conference, at a particular given time, they will try their best to follow all the necessary processes. That is what the people in the Eastern Cape did. That is what the people in KwaZulu-Natal did. And the inability of the leadership of the ANC to address these challenges or concerns, it's one of the biggest weaknesses that the NEC faces. KwaZulu-Natal raised these issues on a number of occasions, following all the protocols and procedures within the party, and nothing actually happened. And the same thing is happening in the Eastern Cape. But quite interesting, all these issues have to come out now because of an elective conference that is coming, because it is on the basis of who certain regions or certain branches actually prefer to become the actual leader of the ruling party.
So they won't give up on their attempts to nullify that, which would then nullify the decisions at that conference. What is the ultimate aim of the party upset with that conference? Who would they like to be in leadership, and who's supporting who for the national presidency?
The preference on leadership is not an issue at this stage, because the ANC has developed guidelines now.
It's their own internal...
These are internal issues, but they've got an impact on leadership. But what one must appreciate the processes or the guidelines that have been developed by the ANC to say that branches are the ones that must actually sit down and take a decision on who is supposed to be in the National Executive Committee. And what does that mean? That would mean that the provinces and the regions must just back off and allow the branches to exercise their powers to nominate without any form of influence from those that are in the provincial leadership, regional leadership, including the national leadership.
Well, this is an interesting question, because all the branches are having their branch general meetings. They decide who they would like to succeed President Jacob Zuma. It's seen as a two-horse race. But then you have the provinces coming in with their say. How influential should the provinces be? Because it's actually the branch delegates that go and vote. Are they meant to consider their members? Are they meant to keep in mind, in the back of their mind, what the province is saying as well? How should it work?
It is quite interesting that in the Northern Cape, there was a conference of the Women's League over the weekend, and they made a pronouncement which is totally different from that of the national leadership of the Women's League. It is time now for the leadership of the provinces and the regions to allow the branches to express themselves on who they actually prefer. And if one would have to rely on the social media information that we're actually getting, one would then say that indeed the process seemed to be running very, very smoothly. But there will always be this kind of temptation, especially from those in the leadership at different levels, to try their best to influence the branches in expressing themselves. And you know the reason why. It is because those that are in leadership positions are also conflicted. And that is why it becomes quite complicated for the leadership of the ANC at a national level to deal with these disgruntled members in KwaZulu-Natal and in the Eastern Cape.
When the actual vote happens at the elective conference in December, what you have is people representing their branches voting. So should their first loyalty be to what the branch members are saying?
When you are a delegate,
is that in summary what you're pushing?
Branches have sat down and they made a determination to say, this is our preferred candidate. And one would expect the branches to go and actually express the views of their branches. But another aspect that we need to look at is that delegates will still be given sufficient chance to lobby amongst themselves. Hence, there's still going to be a vote to be expressed. What one would have expected will be to see the SG making an announcement to say, on the basis of the nominations that we got from the branches, candidate A has got this number of support, candidate B has got this number of support. That will then be able to provide a clear line or a clear indication who is best favored by the branches of the ANC to take over the leadership.
All right, and there's been this talk that if the ANC doesn't self-correct from many of the veterans, also from Lindiwe Sisulu, one of the presidential hopefuls. Let's see if we have that bite from her. Just talking about how leadership has to do something different at this elective conference.
We need to ensure that we cover all those shortfalls that we've experienced. I have said that in my campaign, I would like to ask the ANC, if I succeed, to allow me to have a presidential council of all the presidents of the ANC that would serve as an advisory council to any new president, because in them is rich capital which we have accumulated over so many years. To throw them out there when we have built them ourselves is silly. I would like that to be a constitutional structure so that any ANC president is protected by solid advice.
What do you think of that?
That would be one of the best proposals. Do you know why? is because the very same issues that are being raised by Lindiwe Sisulu are at the heart of the challenges that are actually facing the ANC. The ANC has been unable to manage succession within its ranks. The ANC is confronted with the demon of corruption. The ANC has to focus on service delivery. And obviously, when we have to discuss a succession, you need to have people that are not conflicted. People who are going to sit down and say, let us identify the best amongst the people that we are assessing.
But this is politics, isn't it all about persuasion?
Politics is about persuasions and democracy. But at the same time, the manner in which democracy is being practiced in recent times has actually become the enemy of the very same people who fought for democracy.
A quick view, if it is a two-horse race, Lindiwe Sisulu doesn't actually stand a chance, but some speculation that maybe at the end there could be some sweet deal, possibly coming on the slate of Cyril Ramaphosa, because Naledi Pandor was a surprise in the first place. Any views on those sorts of speculations?
There is a huge possibility that a number of candidates are going to change on the eve of the elections. There is also a huge possibility that certain people that are singing praises for certain individuals are also going to change on the eve of the conference. So anything remains possible. But obviously, we are observing.
How can that happen unless there's vote buying, basically?
If indeed there is a lot of vote buying, you might still see a lot of changes happening, even amongst the delegates. And
do you believe that that's rife?
The vote buying in the ANC has been very rife, and the ANC has not been able to address that, unfortunately. But anything can happen. Come the December conference, Lindiwe Sisulu might emerge as the president of the ANC. We might have NDZ or...
So you're saying it's actually all open still?
It's still open because campaigning and lobbying is still going to continue until the last minute of voting at the conference.
Final question. Based on the branch general meetings that have taken place, if those branch members actually listen to the wishes of their fellow branch colleagues, are we getting a picture of who should be chosen on that basis?
Yes. Unfortunately, the SG has not as yet released the official results, because you'll recall that over the weekend we were saying only about 60% of the branches have gone for their BGMs. And obviously, if you still have 40% remaining, the complexion can still change. But it remains a two-horse race. It's Cyril Ramaphosa and Nkosazana Zuma.
And who's got the lead and how substantial?
Unconfirmed report says that Cyril Ramaphosa is leading.
Right.
That cannot be a cast on stone, because there is still a lot that has to happen come the 16th of December.
Like you say, a lot of persuasion between now and then. Thank you so much for your time. That was political analyst Levy Ndou.